Does anybody remember when this channel was about photography and not about hike logs and industry chit-chat? Well, Pepperidge Farms remembers, and that's why this video is going to be a hike log, yes, but it's also going to have a really high ratio of photos to video. What we're looking at right now is a Google Earth screen grab of the trail that this video is going to follow, and you can see the elevation profile here. Relatively flat by hiking standards, at least for this channel's hikes. That little spur that I just showed you, I don't think I actually got down it. I can't remember for sure. It's been some months. At any rate, the trail goes up in elevation, levels off, and then it dips down again and back to the parking lot. So pretty little elevation gain, only a couple of 100 feet up and down. Anyway, really easy hike, even in the snow. The trail's very well marked, and there are railings along almost the entire trail. You can't get to any of the buildings. You can get to a couple of them. You can't get to most of the buildings. And there are parts of the old mine area down to the bottom left of the trail where you just can't get. And I assume it's because either the earth or the buildings are not suitably safe. So let's zoom in here, and you can see a lot of the different ruins on Google Earth. And I have a few of them marked as to what I thought they might be prior to going there. Some of the ruins are in pretty good shape and they're pretty photogenic. Others are really falling down, and they are not super photogenic. Up here, this is the north end of the trail, and you can see a bunch of different things. And mostly by the shadows, you can see that there's a tower there, and then there's some ruins that are specifically rubble. Then where that little thumbtack or push pin is, yellow push pin, that's one of the bigger buildings along the trail, and one of the ones that we're going to take a lot of photos of. Up there are some of the buildings you can't quite reach, though if you have a slightly longer lens, you can still get good photos of them. Then we go downhill here. That's generally relaxed part of the trail right in there, and get to a point where you can photograph that big building. Now if we scroll down here, you can see some other ruins. These are not in as good a shape. That one right there above the mouse especially is really falling down, and that area you can't get to. I was hoping you could, but there are also along here smaller ruins, a little bit of foresty area where there's a house. Can't get anywhere close back in there where I just showed you, but you can take some decent photos of it from the trail. Here's that little forested area and the house, and then we go through the lowest part of the trail here, back up to what's the power plant, where that yellow push pin is, right at the beginning. It's at the end of the trail and at the beginning if you use the lower parking lot, which I recommend because it's also the parking lot that has the portage on, and that's just a good way to start off any hike. So let's park, and here we go. These are just some signs at the beginning of the hike telling you enter at your own risk, and I think it's private property. I'm looking at this on a preview. I cannot read these signs on my preview, so I'm going off of memory here. I think it also has some contact information about who maintains the area. A note here in this video, there's going to be photos from two different trips to Vindicator Valley, and this one that you're seeing right now, this footage of, is the second trip. It was from February. It was significantly snowier than my first trip in October. This is February 2020. The first trip was October 2019. There's Steinbeck before we got him his nice harness, and this is the counterclockwise loop coming out of the lower parking lot. And there you can see the power plant up ahead. Let's take a look at some closer footage of it. And it's a very interesting building. I believe it's a power plant. I could be wrong about that. And so there is still power going to it. Apparently it looks like there are some decorative lights on it that they probably light up around the holidays. And you can get really close to this building. Definitely don't recommend trespassing or climbing on it, but you can get up to it, right below it, up to the fence beneath it. You can get some interesting photos of it from this vantage right here at the base of the support structure. I would assume that what you're looking at right here is where something was dumped into trains, because that's about the right size for that opening. So it could also be that this was like an ore processing building, and that was just a chute that dropped the ore. I was assuming when I took my notes that that was where the ash from the coal went, but I could be wrong. I am definitely not an expert in old mining buildings. So as you're looking at this, I'm going to show you some photos from both the October and the February trip of this building. Some of them will be backwards because they were taken on paper negatives with a pinhole camera. Just so you know, I forgot to, in post, flip them around. So here's one of them. That's backwards. That was taken on an 8x10 pinhole, same with that one, also backwards, both in October. And this was right beneath it, also with the 8x10 pinhole, also backwards. This is the power plant from down below, also backwards, paper negative. Here's one of it correctly oriented for a change. Another one from down below, and slightly further away, similar angle. You can see how much this structure dominates the landscape. From a big portion of the trail, you can see it. It's a big and imposing building. After we leave that area, then the trail just continues, and this is basically what the trail is like the whole way. It's nice and flat, it's well maintained, it's easy to follow, the railings are there for your safety, and as long as you stay on it, you're going to have a really good time on this hike, as I did both times that I went. So there's the big building at the beginning again. A smaller building could have been an outhouse, can't tell you for sure. Could just have been a shed. There are a bunch of powder sheds along this hike, and we'll see a couple of those, at least in the photos. Coming around the trail after seeing the big building, the valley here opens up pretty nicely, and you get a good comprehensive view of all of these different buildings. The old mining ruins, the hills in the background. There is an active mine on the other side of those hills, so when you're out there, you can hear that active mine the entire time. And then here's a shot of outside of one of the mine owners or mine operators' houses. Similar perspective further back from it. And oh, you know what? That's that big building. I forgot to put that with the first group. Here's another one of the houses that's up at the top of the hill. These are some of the mining ruins, and you can see the setting is pretty good for photography. Here is one of the more dilapidated buildings. It was the one that I called out in the map. And it's a couple more views of that big building. Those got out of place. Here's one of the houses. It's down lower in the valley in some trees. This is some of the ruin area. That's a paper. These are paper negatives, these black and white ones right in here. That's why they look a little bit washed out, a little bit lower contrast, and why they have that grain. This one's not. That's ortho film that had some problems in the developer. This is the inside of one of the powder magazines. Not really all that exciting inside. And then those are some of the structures you can't get to up at the top of the hill. Here you can see them again. And if you have a tele lens with you, you can at least see them. Oh, that dirt spot on the sensor in the top middle is going to drive me nuts. Let's hope this video clip ends soon. Okay, that's better. Now, these are some more of the structures. Here you can see them up close. You can really get very close to these old buildings that are just super neat looking. And you can get some good photos of them in their settings, or some photos with flare. This one building here is that really big one I pointed out in the map, and it also dominates the landscape for a big chunk of the hike. And you can get some really interesting angles on it as you walk around the hike. So one thing that would be a lot of fun to do if you were out doing this hike would be to spend a day or a part of it photographing one or two of these buildings, maybe a few dozen times each, from different perspectives and different angles, just to see how they work differently in the landscape. And here's the outside of one of those magazines, by the way, explosives magazines. One more ruin shot, and then we'll end with a selfie from my October hike. So enjoy your hikes, enjoy your photography, and I hope that you had as much fun watching this video as I did taking and editing the photos.